It is playoff time in fantasy football, so generally you're going to have your roster set, but because of injuries or just we got in with some bad players on our team, still need the waiver wire. Still a very important time for it. So let's go through the top waiver wire ads at each position going into the fantasy playoffs. Let's start at quarterback in our waiver wire segment as we get ready for the fantasy football playoffs. And we begin with Bryce Young, not Bryce Mitchell, the UFC fighter who's kind of a jerk. Bryce Young, 17% owned, 3 touchdowns last week against a pretty good defense with the Rams. He has been inconsistent and he has struggled against this Saints team at home. But if we're desperate, and there are probably some situations where we're desperate, I still think Bryce Young can be decent here. He's had 2 pretty good games in the last 3 weeks. It's indoors. They're starting to figure some more things out with the offense. Chuba Hubbard getting back involved with everything. So it's not perfect, and there isn't a great waiver wire option out there. Again, our cutoff, by the way, is 35% owned or fewer. It's tricky out there. But I think Bryce Young can still be a pretty good spot for you against a New Orleans defense that has been better than a lot of people thought, but still can get got by some pretty good quarterbacks. At wide receiver, this one you're going to have to pay attention to what's going on at quarterback there. But Adonai Mitchell, 25% owned. Quiet game against Miami. Check the status on Tyrod Taylor, see if he is going to be healthy for this game. If he is, Mitchell is still a pretty good play. He still had 6 targets last week against Miami after the big outing that he had a couple of weeks ago. It's an okay matchup against Jacksonville. Again, peep the quarterback, but if Tyrod Taylor is in, then Adonai Mitchell should be in your at least roster. Chimere Dike, 15% owned with the Tennessee Titans, 8 targets last week. He gets a touchdown for the second time in 3 weeks. Not a bad matchup against the 49ers, and 19 targets in the last 3 weeks, so the volume is going to be there for DK. We're not taking Michael Pittman out of the lineup or Justin Jefferson out of the lineup for DK, but if you are desperate, if we've had a tough injury situation or something pop up, DK I think can be a pretty good emergency ad for you. Blake Corum, 33% owned for the LA Rams. Massive game last week. He is obviously a bigger part of the game plan now as they try to keep Kyren Williams healthy for a postseason run. And it's a tough matchup against the Lions, but the volume is going to be there for this guy. And because of that, I think he's a pretty solid running back in a good offense. I think this is a good spot to bring in Blake Corum again. This one is probably someone who you definitely can plug and play into your lineup this week, and it's Devin Singletary with the Giants. 25% owned, 3 straight games with double-digit carries. He has a fantastic playoff schedule lining up with Washington, Minnesota, and the Raiders in the fantasy finals. He's been solid for the Giants. The volume is absolutely going to be there. The offense getting a little bit better with Jackson Dart under center as he, again, starts to figure things out in another offense at the NFL level. But Singletary, solid back in a solid spot here against Washington, and someone that I think you can absolutely trust, not just to pick up, but to play this week in your fantasy playoffs. And then Isaiah Likely, 7% owned. Back-to-back 6 target games, facing a Cincinnati defense that just strives to give up as many tight end touchdowns as it possibly can. They gave up a touchdown to 3 different tight ends for the Buffalo Bills on Sunday in that wild game in the snow out in Orchard Park. I think Likely is trustworthy. I get he had the weird play in the end zone. That should have been a touchdown anyway, and a bigger fantasy day for him. He has worked more into the offense the last couple of weeks, and I think, again, is a pretty good option in what could be a bit of a shootout against the Cincinnati Bengals. And lastly, our defense is the San Francisco 49ers against the Tennessee Titans. 26% owned. Titans offense has been gold for defenses this year. San Francisco's defense is a little bit banged up, and I know we just said that there was DK that you could start against this group as well, but with Cam Ward getting okay, but also having some struggles, I think this is a spot that San Francisco's defense can come up with a big performance in. But honestly, going through this, not a lot of perfect streamer options this week for people, whether it be at quarterback or the defense special teams units. This is hopefully, if you're in the playoffs, it's because you have a good roster and you don't need some of these, and a lot of these moves are just kind of depth plays or defensive moves to keep them away from your opposition. But I think that it's a little slim pickings out there, at least in what we're looking for here at 35% owned or fewer. So, anyway, give me your fantasy questions in the chat. In the comments. We're not didn't do this live this week, but let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. Any disagreements with anything I said in here, let me know. And any other questions, let me know in the comments. And we'll have more fantasy football talk and more NFL talk coming up as the week goes on Couch Potato Diary. And hey, trying to grow this thing, Couch Potato Diary. So if you could hit that share button, as always, like and subscribe as well. But hit that share button, share it with, if you don't want to just expose a gem to people in your league, okay, fine. But some fantasy friends that you know that aren't in leagues with you, send us to them, and we can all chat fantasy football goodness together.